Hola a todos. Me he enterado que algunos videos de 1 a 2 tienen pista de audio y podemos ver algunos de sus vídeos en inglés. Y hoy os pondré el vídeo de las 4 series de Discovery Kids que nadie JAMAS debió ver. Cuidado pero en inglés, así que empecemos.
Forget to turn on notifications to know when there's a new video. Just click the bell icon, check the box, and save. We've all watched the Discovery Kids series at some point, whether it's because of a younger sibling, nephew, etc., or maybe because we used to watch series on that channel when we were kids. And it's well known that most of the series we can watch on that channel are educational in nature. That is, by watching them we'll learn something positive, or at least something that has to do with values. Anyway, although it seems that all cartoons are suitable for children, the reality is that this is not always the case, since there have been certain cases where some cartoons end up damaging certain attitudes and behaviors in children and people in general. That's why I've taken on the task of researching and creating this top 4 Discovery Kids series that no one should ever watch. Peppa Pig has been the most popular series in recent years on Discovery Kids, and this is more than obvious, since even people who have never seen the series or who do not even have children at home know about this character, and this is due to the great impact it has mysteriously had. Anyway, I recently released a video talking about the big problem hidden behind this series, but if you haven't seen it, I'll summarize it for you right now. What happens here is that some time ago a Harvard psychologist conducted a study on children who spent too much time watching this series, that is, Peppa Pig. The results, instead of being positive, were extremely devastating, since it was concluded that children who spent more than 1 or 2 hours watching this series developed certain mental problems. In the end, it was also detected that the children studied had certain behavioral and social adaptation problems. If you want to know more about that case, I'll leave a link in the description of this video where I specifically talk about that investigation, but in general Peppa Pig, a series that is not recommended to watch. The series that I will talk about next had such an impact that the stories of people who watched it often said that they very frequently had nightmares in which characters from this series appeared. I'm talking about JJ, the Little Plane. I'm sure many will remember it, since at the time it was a series that aired for a long time. One of the things that could be most disturbing about this series was that the characters had the faces of real people in. Although, perhaps, at first glance it was not something sinister, what happened here is that in certain internet forums stories began to leak from children who watched this series a lot and, after a while, those same children told their parents that they had had nightmares in which the same faces that appeared in the JJ, the Little Plane series appeared. The strange thing here is that there was never a very thorough investigation into what happened, but the interesting thing is that there were many stories from different children, and they all had similar characteristics. That is, all those children watched the same series, had nightmares, and in those nightmares, the faces from the series appeared, that is, from JJ's series. Curious, right? As an additional piece of information, I want to mention that about 5 years ago I myself looked for the stories and it was very easy to find them. To make this video, I wanted to look for those stories again, but now the forums had disappeared, as if someone didn't want people to find out about the controversy that arose with that series. In the end, there is almost no information left about that case, but that undoubtedly makes it even more mysterious. Little Princess was a Discovery Kids series that came out around 2008. It wasn't most popular series, but I'm sure many will remember it. Basically, the series revolved around the protagonist, who in this case was a girl princess. After watching just a couple of episodes, it was very obvious that the series did not teach anything good. In other words, the little princess had an arrogant and capricious attitude where only what she said was done. And yes, at the end of each episode there was a good message, in quote marks, that is, a somewhat positive message. But well, the series in general terms contributed many more negative attitudes than positive ones. In other words, the children who came to watch the series did nothing more than imitate the princess, being just as bossy, arrogant, and believing themselves to be the owners and masters of their house. Although the series did last a while being broadcast, it is said that it was never one of the most popular, since according to rumors on Discovery Kids from the first times it was broadcast, the series suffered several complaints from parents who said that the series did not teach all positive things. In any case, it continued to be broadcast, but much fewer times than originally planned. Without a doubt, it was a series that left many negative aspects. Without a doubt, the strangest series that has been broadcast on Discovery Kids, the one that has generated the most controversy and that many attribute to having been a fundamental influence in the children who watched that series becoming homosexual. Right now I'm talking about Teletubbies. Since its appearance on television, it has been the subject of incredible criticism, both because of the strangeness of its characters and even more so because of their notable homosexual attitudes. This series has sparked intense debates on topics that were somewhat difficult to discuss at the time, such as sexual orientation. While I personally consider it completely absurd that a children's series could have had such an influence as to guide a group of viewers towards a sexual preference, many others believe that it did indeed have that influence. That's why it's in first place on this list, because for many people, and especially for homophobes, the Teletubbies series is considered the children's series broadcast on Discovery Kids that no one should have ever seen in their lives. If you want to be in my next video, just share this video on one of your social networks and send me a screenshot on my Facebook that you did so. Like our Facebook page, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.